everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 13, or the season 1 finale of Natsume's Book of Friends, and I'm so excited. Also, I have a slight correction from last week. I was about to go and buy volumes 1 and 2 of Natsume's Book of Friends because my moderator, Floor, was like, oh, you can read those now once you finish season 1, and I was like, I want to do that before I start season 2 and talk about it with you all next week. Then I realized that I had already been given volumes 1 and 2 of Natsume's Book of Friends and was like, oh, I have them already. So thank you for getting me these. Thank you, and thank you Patreon for the support. So yeah, I'm gonna look over these volumes and then come back next week and talk about them as we start season 2. Also, gonna give you a heads up, there's gonna be 2 weeks during season 2 that I'll be watching episodes back to back. I had my moderator Floor talk with me, and I trust them because I love this series in and out. And so there will be 2 weeks. I think it's episodes, Crunchyroll has all of the episodes for like seasons 1 through 3, I'm assuming, all bunched together. So episode 19 and 20, which I think is 5 and 6 of season 2, I'm gonna watch together. And then episodes 25 and 26, which I believe are like the season finale and the penultimate episode, I'm gonna watch back to back as well. So you'll see on the thumbnail the 2 weeks that I watch 2 episodes at once. So that'll be pretty exciting. I'm so looking forward to it. I'm glad that Floor loves this series and is able to give me some recommendations. But yeah, I'm excited to read these 2 volumes. That's my goal for this week, and then to come back and talk to you all about it when we start season 2 next week. So yay. I'll probably still have, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I may put on the thumbnail season 2 episode 1. That might be easier. It's always confusing whenever streaming services, they separate out some seasons but not all seasons, and I'm like, what? The organizer in me would be so flustered going through their catalog, but what can we do? So last week was actually really scary with the whole shadow thing and Natsume being somewhat in danger and being stalked by the spirit, the 5-day mark, but we made it. We're here to the season finale, so I'm really excited. This season has been very low-key, but it's set up a lot of interesting things that I'm excited to see kind of fleshed out as we go through the seasons, so we'll just have to wait and see. But I want to give a very quick shout out to our patrons over on patrons over on Patreon, who have not only supported me. Thank you all who have subscribed on YouTube. Thank you all who watch this video, who comment, who's give me support. But the philanthropy tier over on Patreon, they deserve a special thanks as well, because they go above and beyond each month to make sure that I am supported. So I really appreciate that. So I want to give a special shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Bryant Reed, to Dana, to Danny Donmai, to Devorin, to Destiny Marie, to Danger Zone, I have to say it that way every time, to Eric, to Ichu, to Ghostly Turnip, to Fisho, to Kiri, to Elfreya, to Lyndon, as well as Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Nameless Monster, Nicholas, Sunspots Trails, Shimoyama, and Translucent Men. Thank you all so much for all of your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. Anyway, so I'm excited. I don't know what this episode is going to give us, but I poured a cup of coffee and I'm ready to go. So we're not gonna waste any more time. We're gonna dive right into Natsume's Book of Friends, Season 1 Finale, Episode 13. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. Oh, I guess I should not have expected any different from a season finale of Natsume's Book of Friends, because I'm watching so many shows on this channel that are like these dramatic big season finales and just insanity. And so it is nice to scale it back and be like, okay, calm down, Romania. We're just on season 1 of many seasons of Natsume Yujin-cho, so it'll be all right. But I loved it. I loved that this season finale kind of encapsulated a lot to do with Natsume's his character evolution, his character development in this season. It's setting up some interesting mystical things, mysterious things happening in the background that I'm like, especially with Notori, who I'm like, okay, all right, we're going to talk about it. And then Tanema, I ship Tanema and Natsume so hard. They were basically a couple in this video walking around with their adoptive fox child at the festival. It was so cute. I loved it. And I just love how soft and intimate their relationship is. Like, if you told me, I joke about the two bros being a couple. I joke about them being a couple because it's just so funny that they're always together, right? But, you know, I feel like if you told me those two bros were just friends hanging out all the time because they don't have a girlfriend, yeah, I get that. But then with Natsume and Tanaka, it's like, or Tanema, with Tanema and Natsume, it's just like there's something very, and even if it's not, you know, even if it's not homosexual, it's like almost queer platonic, where they're such good friends that it like goes beyond just being friends. They get one another, they finish each other's sandwiches. I don't know. I do feel bad for Sasada. I feel bad for her because damn, we're gonna talk about her this episode. Girl cannot catch a break, and she is kind of a stage 5 clinger, but I relate to her and I'm okay with her for a number of reasons, which we'll get to in this episode. I love the OP and ED. I'm so sad that we're done with them. I hope that the future OP and EDs keep that same calm tone around them. I also like how we have this little image to kind of start the episode out to give us like a little context or some mystery of where it's going. I love the idea of Tanema going one way, but he's looking the other way, which I think ties to him being able to connect with Natsume more because he kind of understands where Natsume is coming from and he wants to understand him. He just goes about it in a less stalkerish way than Sasada, but we'll talk about that. So I feel so bad for Natsume, though, him just falling down and being like, I'm looking for this stupid cat. Them calling Madara the ugly cat the entire episode, hilarious. Hilarious. Madara being like, I'm the supreme bodyguard, and they're like, you're kind of a ridiculous cat, Yokai. I love the animation on him. They make him so funny. And then he just basically beelines and yeets into Tanema. And then Tanema being able to see Madara and hear him. I love that he calls him, what does he call him? He's like, what a humiliating name, Nyanko-sensei. Ponta. What does Ponta mean in Japanese? What is that? Ponta means, let me see. I want to look up Japanese translation for Ponta. What does it mean? It's like trying to do a, let me find Japanese on here real quick and that will help. What does it mean? Tell me your secrets. It means an edible plant or, I don't think that's right. I was like, what does this mean? Spots or stripes? Oh, okay, because he's got like a calico. Okay, that makes more sense. All right, Punta. I was like, I love him just poking him in the face. What's so funny about that, and I think that got me more than it would some other people, is my brother had an old cat. Her name was Tom. He thought she was a boy and she was a girl, but she was ancient when she passed. She was like 16 or 17, and she got kind of decrepit in her last few years. And I remember she was like curled up in a ball in my room at my parents' house, and I was like, she's been that way for a while, and I got really concerned. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, has this cat passed? My brother will be devastated. I'll be devastated. And I didn't want to touch her because I was afraid she was dead. And so I like took a ruler and was like, and she went, I was like, ah! So whenever he's poking at Madara, I was like, oh, I know that feeling. And then I'm surprised Madara actually treats Tanema very nicely compared to the other humans, which I feel is suggesting that Madara has grown a lot this season. You know, at the beginning of the season, he was all ready to like boot Natsume out and like stay away from humans. He didn't like them. Here, he's pretty congenial with Tanema. He's pretty okay with him and just kind of gives him a hard time. And he's quite talkative and tells him all sorts of things. And, you know, there is Tanema, like, scratching his chin. He's like, well, yes, I'm a very noble being. Madara is so ridiculous, but I love him so much. He's like, I'm not just your random everyday yokai. And he's like, well, this is the first time I've talked to one before. And he's like, well, you can't actually see them. It's only because I'm in this cat body. And I like that Madara says, you know, he didn't tell you about being able to see them because there'd be no point. And I like Tanuma. The difference between Tanuma and Sasada for me is that Sasada would be very pushy. She's like, no, I want to talk to you about spirits. I want to know about them. Tell me more. Tell me all your secrets. Explain to me. Like she's a bit more forceful and pushy about it, which, you know, Natsume is not somebody that likes people being forceful and pushy on him. He's like, no, I need my space. Tanuma, what's nice about his character is he gets it. He instantly is like, oh, this is why Natsume's not talked to me about it. That makes perfect sense. Okay, fair enough. And he decides to just like, okay, you know what? Good point. We'll just let it go, and that's okay. And that's all there is to it. And I like that. I like that he accepts it. He moves forward with it. And he's like, whenever Natsume's ready, I'll let him tell me about it. And I think that's what makes his character work so well with Natsume, because he's so understanding, right? I do like how Madara is like, oh, well, Natsume's my servant. And Tanuma is like, well, it actually seems like it's the other way around. Tanuma is no fool. He gets it. He understands instantly. And he's like, you little punk. And I like that he doesn't turn into his full yokai form, because then Tanuma wouldn't be able to see him and there wouldn't be the dramatic effect. It would be for naught. So he tries to be like this demon cat, and then Natsume's like, what are you doing? So yeah. And then we have this moment by the stream where they talk. And I like that it's like the animation studio. I can't wait to look at it in the manga. I can't wait to look at it in the manga where Madara's just like off in the stream trying to catch a fish and jumping around the background while these two are having a talk. I mean, Natsume with the golden eyes and blonde hair, Tanuma with the steel blue eyes and the black hair. I mean, it's so good. It's so good. It's just built for shipping, right? And Natsume says, well, he's actually kind of my bodyguard. I like that Tanuma is just so understanding. He says, you know, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. You know, you've clearly not talked to me about it for a reason. And at first, Natsume's like, well, I didn't want to hide it from you. And then he's like, actually, I did. Because I didn't want to, like, he's like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want people to run away from me or bully me. He's like, I just wanted to have a normal friendship with you all and not have to have it come back to these spirits. And I like that Tanuma's kind of like, well, yeah, but that's a part of you. So, you know, if you want to go beyond just being acquaintances with somebody, you know, when you become friends with somebody, especially like if you have any close friends, you all kind of get to know each other on a deeper level than just random strangers or acquaintances or working colleagues, stuff like that. You get to know people, and part of being friends with someone is knowing sides of them that are not always pleasant, right? Like my friends know my quirks, I know their quirks, and being friends with them means that you kind of like, you know those quirks, but they're not enough to jeopardize your friendship, right? You just work beyond them. And I feel like Tanuma wants Natsume to know that, but he also understands that this isn't just like a normal quirk, like, oh, I'm stubborn. It's, oh, you can see dead spirits. Cool. And so it is a little bit different, right? It's on a different level. And Tanuma being, I love that also Tanuma is always saying, like, how do you feel? Do you feel uneasy? Are you okay with this? He's shifting it, like, it's not whether he's okay with it. He is. He's just like, how do you feel about it? And I'm like, he needs to become a counselor or a psychiatrist when he grows up. I'm just saying. He could easily, I think, fit the bill. I just love Madara's like, I got a big one. Like, Madara's just too cute. And so they talk about the festival, and Madara's like, well, we have to go now. They're setting up. And I like that Natsume tries to reason with him. He's like, nothing's going to be ready. And he's like I care. And I'm like, Madara is often like a child, and it's kind of funny. I love the setup of this festival being like on a hilltop. I love it being like on a plateau overlooking this big valley. That's such a cool setup. It feels very like, it's a perfect for the fireworks, for everything. And Tanuma's like, well, the shrine's on my way. I'll just walk with you. I'm like, yes, you will. Absolutely. So then we see Sasada, and I feel bad for her because all she wants is to be involved with Natsume's life. She is a bit pushy. She is a bit forceful. She's not good at reading the social cue of him not wanting to talk about it. But she reminds me a lot of a character from Mob Psycho 100, which Natsume in some ways reminds me a little bit of Mob from that series. But in Mob Psycho, there is a president of like the occult club, and she just wants to prove the existence of aliens. That's like her whole shtick. And Sasada reminds me a lot of her, where Sasada, I like that Sasada's open to the idea of yokai, that she doesn't think that Natsume is weird because of it. She actually thinks it's kind of cool, and she wants to like have him tell her what's going on. The problem is she's not very subtle about it, and her and Natsume's personalities are not compatible. They clash a lot, right? They're not even yin and yang. They're like on different spectrums. So I feel for her because she is trying to be nice to Natsume. She is trying to talk to him. And Tanema is bound and determined to cockblock that girl, being like, nope, Natsume doesn't want to talk to you. Let's go. It was so funny watching them weave around. It felt like an SNL skit, right? Because she's like, oh, one of the spirits are here, right? And he's like, actually, there's a lot of them. And it felt very much like Spirited Away in that moment where you see all of the different yokai like hanging around all the stalls. It felt simultaneously like Spirited Away from the Ghibli movie, but it also felt like the Ghost City in Heaven Official's Blessing. Felt like that too, in a cool way. Yeah, I also want to point out, they didn't get on to Madara for eating the olives in front of them at their stand, but they got onto that fox spirit. Domestication has its perks, apparently. The one thing that I do think Sasada was totally in the wrong for was trying to pass off the burden of moving the stuff around to Tanema just so she could talk to Natsume some more and try to convince him to show her the spirits. Like, girl, you knew, I mean, to be fair, she knew that the moment she left, they were going to hightail it out of there because that's been their strategy. But I'm like, girl, you don't push that on somebody else, especially Tanema, who's super nice. And I'm glad Tanema kind of pushed back and was like, no, I don't think so. She tried to use her authority as class president to make him do it. And I was like, girl, don't. And I like that the one woman's like, June, which is her first name. She's like, get back over here and help. And she's like, stay here. And then they were like, now's our chance. I'm like, I feel bad for Sasada, but then she does things and I'm like, girl, come on now. So anyway, the fox spirit. I like the little fox spirit showing up. These one yokai, they're such bullies, right? They're such bullies. Like the little fox spirit didn't do anything wrong. And then the spirits were trying to get the fox one in trouble. And that's when Notori shows up. Notori in his absolutely convincing no one, absolutely terrible disguise with his bucket hat and his sunglasses. Let's talk about Notori. Notori is interesting in this episode because for a second I thought that like some bad stuff was gonna go down. Here's my thoughts on Notori this episode. He's shown up at this festival. He does save the fox spirit, but Notori does have in his mind, Notori is like, he has this sense of justice about him where if you're a yokai that hasn't done anything wrong, he's not gonna bother you. But if you're a yokai spirit that's harming people, then we've got a problem. So that seems to be Notori's deal. So for this fox spirit, he's like, no, it's fine. Let the fox spirit go. They didn't actually harm it. And the thing about it is, to prove his point, to make the man like let the fox spirit go, he actually uses one of the yokai working for him to knock the other thing of soup over. And that, allows them to like let the fox spirit go and go from there. And so then he chases away. I like that when he chases away the other yokai, they call Notori a monster. And I'm like, mm-hmm. So meanwhile, before we go back to Notori and talk about him, I forgot that we do go to the temple with the barley tea where Tanema hangs out with Natsume. And they have like little snack treats and stuff in the little bowl. Barley tea sounds like something that an old person would drink. Barley tea sounds like something your grandparent would make for you when you'd visit them. So maybe that's because Tanema lives with an older monk that he makes it. Anytime that I think of barley tea, I think of my great grandmother and how her house had like a distinctive smell or taste to all the food. And it just felt like her place. Like that barley tea makes me feel nostalgic like that. And so I agree with Natsume where he's like, it's pretty bare. Like there's not a lot going on here. And Tanema's like, yeah, well, we're pretty minimalist. And then he's like, it's almost time. And he shows like him the reflection of the pond on the ceiling, like where the light hits the reflection. And Natsume feels kind of bad being like, oh, he can't see the spirit pond that's there and the fish. He says those fish are red. They look brown as sin to me. And Natsume feels kind of bad because he can see these things Tanama can't. So for Natsume, it's like he's almost, taking advantage of something that's special to someone like Tanama. But Tanama knows that he can see this pond, and he's like, that's fine as long as, someone can see it. It's not just like an unexplained phenomena. Poor Sasada, though. She's like, well, dang it. And that's when she finds Madara. Sasada's second strike is tying Madara up and holding him hostage so that Natsume will come back to see him. I'm like, girl, stage 5 clinger. Am I right? So we have the festival set up, right? And the festival leads up to this shrine, right? And from there, on the outskirts of the city, Notori talks to the little fox spirit. And they ask if he knows Natsume. Notori says no. Notori knows Natsume. Absolutely. But he says no. And I'm like, why would you deny that? Why would you lie in that moment to this fox spirit? Why would you say you don't know them? Notori's interesting to me. I like Notori, and I think that he has a good heart, but I do think that throughout this series, Notori is going to become a source of conflict for Natsume, because he's an exorcist, right? And the whole point of an exorcist is to exorcise yokai. And I think that Notori's sense of justice is, well, as long as you're a yokai that's not harming anything, you're fine. I'll leave you alone. But the moment you start harming humans, then I'm going to have to exorcise you. And I feel like Natsume, who's just like, no, don't do that, is going to have conflict with it, right? So I think he doesn't want the fox spirit to know that he knows Natsume, because he doesn't want to involve Natsume in whatever he's planning to do, right? And they're like, Natsume understands me too. And he's like, oh, well, did you come here to meet him? And the fox spirit's like, yes, I did. I just know that he'll come. And he's like, oh, I see. So I hope you can see him. So when the fox spirit goes off, he sends Hiragi, his newest person, to go and follow the fox spirit to see if they find Natsume. And then we see these doors open up, and there's all of these individuals with masks or papers over their head. I'm like, are they all yokai? Are they all exorcists? Is it a gathering of the exorcists? What are we doing? I don't know. Notori and these spirits or monks or exorcists or whatever they are, they're all planning something. And I feel like we're going to explore that in season 2. This series, it's so chill and so calm, but at the same time, it's setting up little nuggets of things that, as we've seen over the course of season 1, they have payoff later. So I'm like, all right, you got me intrigued, show. You've got me intrigued. And yeah, and he says, sorry, I'm late. And there he is. I don't know. I like Notori, but do I think he's going to be a morally gray character? I think he's going to do some things that Natsume's not going to like, and that it's going to be that source of conflict. Speaking of sources of conflict, Madara just being tied up in the corner, nobody cares. Nobody cares about him being tied up in the corner, which is so funny to me, because Madara's always like, I'm such a big and bad character. Nobody cares. The people that do care, though, are Toko and her husband, making sure that Natsume is okay. And if I were her, I would feel a bit concerned as well. And I feel like that's something else that's going to be tying into season 2, is Toko and her husband kind of like, her being concerned for Natsume, asking him what's going on. And her husband is kind of like, he has the dad vibes, where he's like, oh, Natsume's okay. He's not a kid anymore. He's a teenager. He's just running off, hanging out with friends. We don't need to keep tabs on him all the time. He's very free-range parenting. And Toko's like, but what if he's hurt? What if he's not okay? He's not called back before, and I've been worried about him. She has rightfully a reason to be scared for him. And the father's kind of like, but it's okay. We'll let him be a teen. It's all right. And I like that he joked about Madara coming back and telling them if anything was wrong. Madara is literally Yokai Lassie. Like, he will be like, Natsume's stuck in a well. Like, he would be the first person to probably go find them and tell them if something was wrong. Except he knows that Toko and them can't do anything, so. But I like that he's like, look, If anything bad will happen, we'll find out. And then he's like, how long has Takashi been with us? I'm sure he suffered a lot before he came here, but he's too accommodating. I love that we see the two sides. Natsume, we'll talk about what he says later about his foster parents, but the foster parents know. Natsume doesn't want them to know about his past, but I'm like, I think they know. Because they said he suffered a lot before he came here. They may not know about the yokai, but they know he's been bullied and gone through some bad situations, because when you're adults and you take in like a foster kid, you get the background of what happened before they come there, right? Even if the entire context isn't stated. So I like that the dad says he's very eager to please us and he's far too accommodating and he thinks of us over himself, and that can be a detriment. I like that the dad kind of advocates for Natsume to have a little self-care. He's like, let him be a little selfish. Let him do something for himself and not be worried 24/7 about whether we're okay with it or not. As long as he's safe, it's fine. And he's like, Natsume's a responsible kid. He's not going to put himself into danger without considering how others feel. So he's like, let's not keep that stagnant behavior. Let's encourage some growth in him. And I'm like, that's really cool. I like that. And the little look that they give each other at the end, where she looks over at him and he's like, if we're always considerate of each other, we're not a real family, are we? And just him looking at her like that and her having the little blush on her face. I feel for Toko and her husband and them not having any kids and kind of like taking on Natsume as like a foster kid. Like, it's so sweet. I love their family so much. It's so adorable. I love it. Speaking of adorable, Tamiko, the little girl that made friends with Madara, I love her little yukata with the goldfish on it. She's friends with Sasada, so we're like connecting everybody together. Then she notices Madara in the corner. I guess people can't see him because he's behind the box. And she manages to get him out. I just love that she drags him by the rope. Madara has had just the worst time this second half of the season. He's just been drugged by a rope. He's had a bad day off. It's so funny. It's so funny. But yeah, we have all the stands, all the stalls. It's super cute. It's so fun seeing the little trucks, like the Japanese trucks that carry all the goods and everything. I feel like there's not any in America that look exactly like that. And the only thing I can think of is when I used to play Pokemon, like Pokemon Red or Blue, when it came out in the late 90s, those trucks, I remember that like the big rumor was you could move one of those trucks and you'd find Mew or something, or a passageway to Bill's Garden or something. It was such a thing. If you weren't playing that game in the late 90s, you won't know what I'm talking about, but love it. So then I love the idea that right as that girl Tamiko takes off with Madara, Natsume and Tanama show up. Don't see him, but they're trying to avoid her stall at all costs because they don't want her chasing after them. Oh, it's hilarious. I love the relationship between Natsume and Tanama. It's so cute. Let me ship them. So when the pouch first showed up, that was the fox spirits, because Notori is being a little bit shady in this episode, I was worried for a hot second that Notori had the yokai like take the fox spirit away, or we're gonna like lure Natsume out, or something bad was gonna happen to the fox spirit. I was starting to get bad vibes, and I was like, oh no, not in the season finale. I was like, are we gonna get left on a cliffhanger for the first time in this series now? And that's not what ends up happening, so that's a good thing. But yeah, a poor fox spirit. And then the poor bros whose food get taken by a spirit and the man get mad at him. I felt bad for them too. And the food got taken by Hinoue. Got taken by her, who of course she stole from the two bros. Doesn't like men. Hilarious. I love it. I love that all the yokai are just kind of hanging out. I'm glad the fox spirit got their medicine back so they could turn human for a day. That part was really nice. And Tanama doing the little wink towards the camera whenever he points out that her food's boiling over and he cock blocks Sasada. That is hilarious. I just paused as he's winking to the camera. Shut up. Shut up. Oh my god. That's hilarious. Anyway. So they take the fox spirit back, and Natsume asks if Notori is here, and they're like, oh yeah, he's at a meeting. And he's like, did he ask you to look after the fox spirit? And Hiragi points out that Natsume is being too soft. That you know, if you talk to the spirit in public, people are going to think you're weird and it's going to draw attention. And Natsume's grown so much over the course of this season that he's just like, no, it's fine. I'm cool. I'm comfortable with it. And Hiragi's like, I don't like that softness. It's going to get you in trouble. I feel like that's another reason that Hiragi and the other yokai that work for Notori do work for him, because they're like, he's not soft. If he has to do something, he'll do it. And Natsume's ever the pacifist, which some of the yokai are kind of against. So it's setting up some interesting dynamics there, right? So anyway, I love that the human turning food is like rainbow colored. Super cute. And I like that even though they turn into a human, they still have like the little, it almost looks like a headband, the fox ears. And I like that Tanama becomes friends with the fox spirit, and it's super cute. I love this little montage of them walking around like they're on a date, little fox spirit getting all the things. It's so cute. Madara coming out and being like, you traitor. Madara is such a source of comedy in this season. Surprisingly, it's great. It's so good. But yeah, and then Sasada catching back up to him. Oh my god. I'm glad they eventually got to see the fireworks, because when Natsume couldn't see because of the one yokai, I was like, just move over, get closer to Tanama, just invade his space a little bit. So I'm glad they moved to where they could all see them. But Tanama asks Natsume, being like, does Toko know that you can see yokai? And he says no. And he's like, well, do you trust them? And he's like, no, that's not it. He's like, they're so kind, but they would be sad if they knew about what happened to me in the past. And the thing is, they kind of already do. They just don't know the full context. And he's like, I don't want them to be sad. He's like, I'm finally in a home that is kind and they're kind to me. I don't want them to stop smiling. And I'm like, damn it, Natsume. Just being so nice. And so they move over, and I love the little fox spirit with like the big shiny eyes. It's so cute. And I like that it slowly is starting to turn back into a fox as they leave. You can see the fox ears coming back and everything. So, you unfaithful traitor, as Madara comes back. You abandon your own bodyguard. I love Hinoue watching them too. It's so cute. And then talking about winter is coming. I feel like Ned Stark with the sword. Winter is coming, but the warmth remains. Oh. And that's season 1. The most chill show. The most chill show. I love it. I love how chill it is. I love the message about kindness, about Natsume's character growth. I love all of it. And we're 1 season down. We've got seasons 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to go before we get to season 7 coming out. I'm so excited. I can't wait. So yeah. I'm excited to see exactly when was season 1 aired, because Crunchyroll is wrong. And I know that you all have told me before, but I have forgotten. Season 1 of Natsume's Book of Friends came out in 2008, which is insane to me. Yeah, season 1 aired in 2008. Huh. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? So, I'm assuming most seasons come out like within a year of each other. Just looking at season 2 says 2009, so the next year. So, all right. This is so weird. I was like finishing up like my undergrad. No, not undergrad. I was not. I was like finishing up for my community college around the time this came out, which is so bizarre to me. So I would have been like 20 when this came out. So I would have been the prime age to watch this. Insane. Insane. So yeah, maybe with next year will come an upgraded animation quality on Crunchyroll. We'll see. But in the meantime, I'm going to be looking at volumes 1 and 2 and checking those out. So I'm pretty excited to do that and go from there. Interestingly enough, I'll just note on the cover, Natsume has like silver hair and silver eyes instead of having blonde hair and gold eyes, which is so interesting to me. It almost looks like he looks when he's possessed by the one spirit, so we'll see about that. But yeah, I'm super excited, y'all, to see what we get, and I'm going to talk about these next week when we start season 2. So I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week, and we'll talk about season 2, episode 14, or season 2, episode 1 of Natsume Yujin-cho, Natsume's Book of Friends.